Good morning all. In this session, we will be learning about housing standards, competency number 3.5. And at the end of the session, you should be able to describe the minimum housing standards. You should be able to discuss the health implications of poor housing, and you should be able to define what is overcrowding and the criteria to assess overcrowding. So what is housing? Housing is not just the physical structure that you live in, but it also includes the neighborhood, the facilities that you use, like the school, the health, or the shopping places, etc. And also the services which is rendered to you by the community related to it. So why is housing important when it comes to public health? Or is it important at all? Yes, housing has a tremendous impact on health. According to WHO, proper housing can prevent diseases, save lives, and improve the quality of your life. So what are the social goals of housing? The first goal of housing is to provide you a safe and sanitary shelter. The second goal is to provide you a family life, that is to give you enough space for a family life so that you can spend time with your family, eat food, sleep, and carry out your daily activities. The third goal is to give you an access to community facilities like schools, hospitals, shopping places, etc. And the fourth goal is to help you to be a part of the community so that you can get help in times of need and can help you to improve your living condition. And the final goal is to give you an economic stability, because we know that a house is definitely a form of an investment. So poor housing can cause different health problems. And so minimum standards for housing is set so that it can prevent you from having any diseases. So these standards depend upon various factors like the socio-economic status, the family income, the quality of your life, standard of living, so on. And it differs from country to country. In India, the criteria that we follow is given by the EHC 1947, and it is discussed under these headings: the site, setback, floor, roof, wall, windows, kitchen, etc. We'll be coming to detail about it. First is site. The site should be elevated from the surrounding so as to protect from flooding during rains. It should be away from breeding places of vectors to protect you from vector-borne diseases. Also, the site should be away from heavy dust, smoke, traffic, noise, etc. to protect you from various sorts of pollution. Also, the housing should be in an amiable surrounding, and there should be an access to the street, and also the soil for the foundation should be dry and safe. You might all know about a solid waste disposal technique called dumping, which is used for reclamation of land. Such type of soil is not at all safe for building houses. Now coming to setback. What is setback? Setback is the open space around the building. So there is a criteria for setback, and this is very much important for adequate ventilation and lighting. So when it comes to a rural area, the setback should be 2/3. That is, the building area should only be 1/3 and the open space should be 2/3 of the available area. But in urban places where the availability of land is less, the built area can be 2/3 and the open area or the setback can be 1/3. So once again, in rural area, the setback or the open area should be 2/3 of the total area, and in urban area, the setback should be 1/3 of the total available area. Now coming to the floor should be impermeable so that you can wash it and keep it dry and clean. And then there should not be any cracks and crevices, because there are a lot of vectors like sandfly which breed in the cracks and crevices. So the floor should be free of all cracks and crevices, and it should be damp proof to avoid accidents. The height of the plinth or the base should be at least 2 to 3 feet. Now coming to the walls should be reasonably strong, smooth, it should withstand all weather, and the heat capacity should be low so that the interior will be cool. And again, it should be free from all cracks and crevices, because vectors like ticks, sandfly, bedbugs, etc., they live in such cracks and crevices. So walls should be free of all cracks and crevices, and it should not be easily damaged. So we can achieve all this by making the wall light colored and also by plastering it and painting it. Now coming to the roof should be at least 10 feet from the ground so that there will be adequate ventilation and the interior will remain cool. And the rooms, definitely the number of rooms will depend upon the number of people in the family. but at least there should be 2 rooms, of which we should be able to close at least 1 room completely. Now coming to the floor area should never be less than 50 square feet per person, but ideally for an adult there should be 100 square feet, and if there are more than 1 people, 120 square feet should be there. So what is the problem if there is no adequate number of rooms or floor area? The problem is that it will lead to overcrowding, and there are a lot of diseases which are associated with overcrowding. Now coming to the cubic space, there should be at least 500 cubic feet per person, but ideally it's always better to have 1000 cubic feet per person. Now coming to the windows, another important area. The windows, there should be at least 2 windows in every room, especially if there is no artificial ventilation and lighting. And of the 2 rooms, of the 2 windows, 1 should open directly into the open space. And the windows should never be more than 3 feet from the ground. And the window area should be at least 1/3 of the total floor area, and the windows and doors together should be 2/3 of the floor area. That's again an important thing, so I'm repeating it again. The window should be 1/3 of the floor area, and windows and doors together should be 2/3 of the floor area. Now coming to lighting. Lighting is measured in daylight factor, which is nothing but the percentage of outside illumination which is entering indoor, and the daylight factor should be at least 1% over half of the floor, so that we can say there is adequate lighting. So coming to kitchen, the kitchen should be definitely separate from the rest of the dwelling houses, because otherwise it can lead to indoor air pollution. And then there should be areas to prepare and store food. There should be a proper sink, adequate water supply, and the most important thing is that there should be a drainage system, a proper drainage system. And definitely every house should have its own private sanitary latrine. There should be facilities for bathing and washing, and there should be an adequate, safe water supply for every house. And there should be facilities to remove the garbage and refuse at least once a day. So those were the minimum standards. When it comes to rural housing, you should also talk about the sanitary well. There should be a well or a tube well within a quarter of a mile from the dwelling place. And if there is a cattle shed, it should be at least 25 feet away from the dwelling place. So as we have already mentioned, if the housing is not good or if there is a poor housing standards, there are a lot of health implications associated with. For example, the respiratory infection. We said that if there is overcrowding, it can lead to respiratory infections, or if the kitchen is not separate, it can lead to respiratory infections like TB, influenza, diphtheria, measles, etc. And the second thing, it can also cause a lot of skin infections like scabies and ringworm. And then we already discussed that the walls and the floor should be free from cracks and crevices, because these are vector breeding places, and the site of the house should also be away from vector breeding places. Why? Because there are a lot of vector-borne diseases like malaria, dengue, chikungunya, leishmaniasis, which is caused by sandfly. So all these diseases you can get if the housing standards are poor. Also rodents. Rodents are an important host for flea, which can cause plague and endemic typhus. So because of this, the housing standards should be maintained. Also, if there is a structural deficit, for example, if the floor is not damp proof, if the walls are not strong, if the soil for the foundation is not strong, it can lead to accidents, especially if there are elderlies in the home. And the psychosocial effect. We said that one of the important goals of a proper housing is to help the family members to have an access to the community. So people who are living in isolated houses, they can have this sense of loneliness. Also, if there is overcrowding in the house, it can cause behavioral problems like anxiety, frustrations, etc. So in total, poor housing can definitely increase morbidity and mortality of the occupants. So coming to another important aspect, overcrowding. So what is overcrowding? Overcrowding means people are living within a single dwelling, then there is space for them, so that the movement is restricted. Again, as I said before, it can cause problems like spreading of infectious diseases and psychosocial problem. How can we assess this overcrowding? There are different ways to assess overcrowding. The first one is person per room criteria. That is based on the number of rooms, how many people can be accommodated in the house. So if there is only one room, only 2 persons can be there. If there are 2 rooms, it can accommodate 3 persons. If there are 3 rooms, 5 persons, and so on. The second criteria is the floor space criteria. So we already said that minimum floor space required is 50 square feet. The floor space should not be less than that. But ideally for one person, the floor space should be 70 to 90 square feet. If two people are there, 110 square feet or more is needed. So there is something called as half a unit, means babies under 1 year of age is not considered, and children 1 to 10 years is considered as half a unit. And the third criteria to assess overcrowding is sex separation criteria. In this, two people more than 9 years of age of opposite gender, not husband and wife, are obliged to live in the same room. It is considered as overcrowding. That is the third criteria, the sex separation criteria. So if the housing standards are maintained, as we said before, it can protect you from diseases and it can improve the quality of life. And we have different indicators to assess the quality of life. For example, the physical indicators, it depends upon the floor space available, the number of space available, the cubic space available, etc. And then we have the economic indicators, which is based on the cost of the building, the expenditure on the building, etc. And finally, we have the social indicators, which includes the indicators, how much the house can help you to prevent the spread of diseases, or how much comfort it can give you in the form of thermal comfort, spatial comfort, visual comfort, acoustic comfort, etc. And then how much it can protect you from acquiring mental health problems or behavioral problems. So to conclude, definitely housing is very important when it comes to public health, and we also have government programs at the state level and the national level to improve housing. Like for example, we have the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, which will give financial assistance for the poor for building houses. So along with the government support and following the minimum standards, we can definitely have a healthful housing, and which will help you to prevent diseases and lead a healthy life. So that's all about the session. Yeah. Thank you.